Welcome to the Unlock Wellness Podcast. I'm Dr. Casey, and today's guest is Dr. Al Colucci. And I was fortunate enough to get to practice alongside of Dr. Al in student clinic whenever we were both in school at Palmer College of Chiropractic. And Dr. Al is an extremely knowledgeable physician. He is certified in electrodiagnosis, but more importantly, he truly loves his patients and he treats them like family. And he's dedicated to finding the root causes of his patients' conditions and just loves helping people become their healthiest, best functioning self so they can better perform at their jobs and also for their families. So thank you so much, Dr. Al, for coming on. I'm really excited that you were able to.
Yeah, thank you, Casey. I appreciate the opportunity to let me speak and get on here and kind of speak my mind a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. So, before we get going, Dr. Al, if you want to go through and talk a little bit about your background and how you first became interested in chiropractic.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty interesting story. I found out kind of at a pretty young age. I was in sixth grade, and my dad actually had gotten hurt at work, hurt his neck pretty bad. So he started going to a chiropractor about an hour or so away. And he was like, hey, one time he's like, you should come with me. It's pretty cool. Kind of check out how he does things, and I'm starting to feel a lot better. So I went out there with him, and it was a guy by the name of John Incledon. He was a Gonstead practitioner. And I got out there and he sat him down in the chair. And I swore I witnessed a murder the first time. It was like just everything cracked all the way up, all the way down. I was like, oh my God. And then my dad was like, oh yeah. He's like, that feels great. So John was like, hey, do you want to try? I was like, yeah, sure. So after I got that first adjustment, I was pretty well hooked. And I said, you know what? I think this is what I'm going to do for a living. And so over the years, like from middle school to high school, I would go out there, get adjusted, talk to John, and he would kind of give me some little tapes and stuff like that on what chiropractic is, how it works, why it works, things like that. So then when I got into college, I started wrestling more and boxing and whatnot. So my body was taking a pretty good beating. But a chiropractor had opened up in my town. So instead of driving an hour out, I figured I'd give this guy a shot and see what happens. Guy by the name of Dr. Robert Strange. He was a chiropractor as well as an acupuncturist. And I don't know, we just all hit it off pretty well. And in a short time, he really became like family to me, really took me under his wing. And I had to do an internship for undergrad in order to graduate, and he let me do it at his office. And after the internship was over, he was like, hey, you want to be a chiropractor anyway, why don't you just stay on, work for me, and then you can do the insurance billing, and then I'll show you some other things on the side too that'll help you get through. Mm-hmm. So basically was under his tutelage for a while and got into chiropractic college. Went through the whole thing and came back, and he said, hey, got a job for you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. Yeah. No, that's cool that you got to come back to, close to your hometown. I know you didn't say, but Dr. Al is in New York. And it's cool you got to go back to your hometown, to somebody that you feel comfortable with and that you really got to learn under.
Yeah. And, and to come back and see some of the same patients that were there even before I left to go to chiropractic college, that was pretty cool too. They're like, oh wow, you're a doctor now, you're a chiropractor, you could work on me, blah blah blah. It was pretty neat.
Yeah, it's cool because you already have that trust and stuff.
Yeah, so they, it's different than just getting a job somewhere where nobody knows you, and everybody knew who I was and the story behind it too. So it was pretty cool. But one thing I do want to mention though, real quick, we talk about getting into chiropractic college and whatnot. Something that happened to me when I got out. This is for anybody who's interested in becoming or going to chiropractic college. Really look at your state's prerequisites and whatnot for getting licensure. Because I had organic chemistry and physics both waived going into chiropractic college. So I figured that was it. I didn't need them. But when I got out of chiropractic college, finished up my boards and everything and applied for my license, New York denied me because I didn't have those classes. So I actually had to go back to undergrad and take organic chem and physics.
That's
and
crazy.
that wasn't fun.
Yeah, that definitely, I don't know the state laws. I think North Carolina might have a law like that, or that might be like a score requirement on the boards. Actually, I'm not 100% sure, but that is crazy. That is good to know for anybody listening that is interested in chiropractic school. That would be really unfortunate. I'm sure that was a little bit of a setback for you.
Yeah, that was a tough one, but thank God Dr. Strange treated me well through that, and I did other things at the office and still made money and whatnot, so it was okay. It got me through.
Right, and you were able just to keep learning in the process. Yeah, that's great that you have somebody like that was able to train you. So with your office, what is the main type of patient that you guys see there?
So we see pretty much it's pretty much like a family practice. I mean, we could see anybody with little kids with ear infections, all the way up through construction workers, state workers, and corporate executives from the city. So we really have a pretty mixed bag of people and personalities too, which make it fun because each case is different and everybody's attitude is different. So you have to kind of change your ways as you go. You have to constantly evolve, even really just throughout the day. Right,
definitely. Are there certain cases that you see more of in particular,
or? That actually depends on. Or what I'm finding, it depends on weather conditions, especially living up here in the Northeast. It's pretty interesting. We have the change in seasons and whatnot. But you'll always hear the old timers say they know when it's going to rain or bad weather's coming. They're like, oh, my old shoulder injury when I used to pitch for the Yankees, is acting up and whatnot. And so we do see a higher percentage of people when it's about to storm come in with kind of just your general aches and pains. Nothing crazy serious with it, but they usually stretch, hot baths, hot soaks, heating pads, and things like that to get them through. The other thing I did actually notice with increase in barometric pressure is that people with Hashimoto's disease tend to have a very difficult time through, like if we have a good week or a bad weather week, I should say, they seem to be very affected by that.
That's interesting. What kind of symptoms are you seeing with that?
So they're saying a lot of like muscle aches, pains kind of all over, but tiredness, irritability, and their digestive system really seems to be off. They get a lot of GERD type symptoms, or as us Italians like to call it, we get the agita.
Well, too, Dr. Al, especially, being in the North, I'm fortunate to be in the sunny Florida, but you're getting that, you're not getting as much vitamin D. So that's going to affect pretty much every system. And it's not, physical and, emotional too.
Yeah, absolutely. And most of the Hashimoto cases we see, because of that, their vitamin D levels are pretty low too.
Yeah.
So they're either on a vitamin D supplement or, but like you said, this time of year, it can be, or the wintertime, it can be very tough to get vitamin D.
Yeah. Do you notice that a lot of practices there do a lot more testing because of that, like nutritional testing?
I think so. Nutritional response testing is very popular up here. You see a lot of practitioners doing that.
Yeah.
As far as what we do with that, we keep everything fairly basic. We like to stick to kind of more of an anti-inflammatory type diet, just fresh fruits, fresh meats, fresh vegetables. If you can, you take supplements, your vitamin D supplement and whatnot, but we try not to go too crazy with all that either. Try to be like kind of middle of the road spectrum,
Well, it's good too, because, if you try to do too much at one time, you don't really know what's helping and what's not. So it's just taking those small steps first and then finding out exactly, does this work? Does this not work? And then moving to the next thing.
Yeah. Like little trial and error process with
everything. To see how, certain things affect other things. Yeah, definitely, for sure. Is there, so besides that, I know you grew up an athlete, like you were saying, different, like fighting, wrestling. Do you guys have a lot of athletes that come in as well?
Yeah, we get quite a few. We actually tend to get a lot of runners.
Okay.
So like marathon runners, some sprinters, doing hurdles and like long jump, things like that. Doc's wife is actually a very accomplished runner. She runs like 5Ks, 10Ks and whatnot So
That's
she
cool. Has
brings
she
in
has she done the New York Marathon?
I'm not sure if she's done the New York Marathon, but
Gotcha.
I know last year she was traveling all over the country with it. But he keeps her going, but in turn, everybody she runs with winds up coming in. So we see quite a few, the shin splint cases and a lot knees. You wind up with like torn meniscus, things like that. We see a
Right.
lot of.
Yeah, I know, Dr. Al, that you do a lot with different foot levelers, orthotics. How do you decide for a certain patient, like if it's a hip issue or if it actually is a foot issue? Because I know a lot of the times it can just be, your hips are misaligned, so you're putting more pressure on one side, or if it's actually like they have, like flat foot or like fallen arches.
Flat feet or
Yeah. So what's the best way that you've found that to figure
yeah.
that one out?
So basically what we do, we use a foot levelers machine,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not sponsored by foot levelers or anything, so I don't have to throw a plug in for them. But we do use their equipment because it really does work. It works great. And so basically what we do is when a patient comes in, and it doesn't matter if they're a runner, any type of athlete really, or they just have general like a chronic low back pain, we tend to look from the ground up. So we'll take a look at the feet. If we notice that one foot looks like it's a little bit more pronated than the other, they say, okay, we take them in the other room and we do a foot scan on them using the foot levelers machine. And one thing that I've noticed, that even if there's just as much as a 1% balance difference from side to side, it still throws off your normal gait pattern.
Hmm.
Right. So then you look at the pronation index on it, and it should be between like 0 and 34. And the majority of people that we get on there really are anywhere between 90 and over 100. So most people are really in the moderate range to that. So then we do, after that's done, we take them back to the other room, and I like to do something, we call it Izzy's test. Okay, so say the person they're having back pain at the moment, right? It could be, let's say, right glute, right QL. I have them stand on their toes, and if the pain tends to subside a little bit, eases or gets better,
Mm-hmm.
then I have them go back flat on their feet. Once they go flat, if it increases, then I know that pronation is the issue. Because when you stand on your toes, you're taking pronation completely away.
Right.
Right. So then I'm like, okay, so you'll have a general pain pattern. And I see this with most of the low back patients that come in, that pronation is an issue. So IT band will be really tight, right? You just barely touch the IT band and it'll light them up. Glute med is usually really tender. Okay. And then it'll end usually in the QL. So you touch the QL and they want to come off the table with it.
Got it. And for people that don't know what QL means, if you want to kind of explain that, just so, yeah.
Yeah, the QL is the quadratus lumborum.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like the biggest stabilization muscle in the low back. So you're bending, you're twisting, you're turning. The low back the QL is usually taking the brunt of that.
Got it. Are there certain things that you would recommend to a patient that if they are having some foot issues like that, but they don't want to go the foot leveler route, like different stretches or exercises that you recommend that could relieve that?
I like the figure 4 stretch.
Okay.
So in other words, just to kind of explain it without video, you take, say, your right foot, right, and you bring it all the way up to the top of your left knee. So your right lateral ankle is on top of your left knee. Okay, and you're sitting in a chair, and then you just lean forward, and what that does is it's gonna help release the glute muscles, glute med, and then that in turn will help kind of take some of the pressure off of the rest of the musculature, so off the rest of the pelvis and whatnot too, and help level it up. But that's probably the best one that I've found.
Yeah.
That.
No, that's definitely a really great way to help that. And I know also, Dr. Al, you like to do a lot of posture analysis, which I think is really important because the posture is a window into your spine. If you have a posture that is off, then that tells us exactly different compensations in the spine, and then that pressure could be putting pressure on the nervous system and causing nerve irritation, which could obviously cause any symptom available. I mean, just having forward head posture, I mean, every inch forward, a forward head posture is 10 additional pounds to your neck. So it's crazy.
Yeah, and not to mention that it affects mood too. There's
Yes.
studies done by I believe it was San Francisco University did a study on. They took two groups. They took one, obviously with bad posture, so they're slumped over, hunchback, or text neck, just head down, and another group that had good posture. And what they found was the group that had good posture seemed to be in a better mood. The people with bad posture tend to be a little bit more on the depressed side, which makes sense, because what do you do when you're depressed? You kind of, your shoulders roll forward, you're slumped over, you're like, oh man.
Right. There's definitely a difference in posture
blah.
between confidence or upset. And now you're never going to see anybody like just walking upright, confident in a nursing home, right? You always see the hunched over, shuffling through the hallways. I mean, if you pay attention, you notice that kind of stuff.
And I think we notice it more, so we can even notice more of the subtleties, because I mean, like when we were in chiropractic college, the first semester or first quarter that we were there, who was it? Dr. Shreve would tell us, hey, go to the beach and just look at everybody on the beach. Just look at how they walk, how they,
yeah.
And that kind of stuck with me. So even when I'm at the gym, sometimes I'm kind of like staring at people, and I don't mean to be in like a weird way or anything, but I'm just watching their posture and the way they walk, and I'm like, oh yeah, they looks like they have an inhibited left glute muscle that side, or large Q angle on the knee or whatever, and like, yeah, they're gonna wind up with some Pezan serine bursitis or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, once you're aware of it, you're definitely more, you see it everywhere. And I like that you mentioned text neck, because that's something that, I mean, you as soon as you explain what this is to people, they'll be like, oh yeah, that's definitely happening. It's, you see a lot of kids, I mean, even adults. And I'm guilty of it too sometimes. And I really try to be aware.
Me as well.
But like, when you look at your phone, you're bending your head downward, and that's putting so much pressure on your cervical spine and those nerves. And then you're seeing a lot of kids with different issues, different allergy issues, different attention deficits, but those the nerves there are what control that. So there's definitely a correlation between the two.
And headaches as well.
Yep.
When the levator scap is stretched like that, that's going to directly, lead to cervicogenic headaches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's actually I can't remember. I'll have to find it and I can send it to you, but there's an article or like a study talking about the increased neck surgeries that are going to be happening the next like 5-10 years of young people. So they're already preparing for surgeries for this because they know it's already such a big issue. So, but it's really frustrating because it's like they're planning for all of these surgeries when it's like, why aren't you planning just for prevention?
Fix, yeah, exactly. Why don't you start like a class or something like that to help prevent this in the first place?
Yeah. So I'm like constantly, just to help you guys, if you're looking at your phone all day, just try to be aware. It's like, try to keep your eyes level, bring your phone up to an eye level spot. That way your neck is straight and you're in the right position. And especially with your kids, just try to be super aware of that.
And then now I wonder what the correlation would be to with text neck and that eventually causing like a straightening of the cervical spine.
Oh, definitely.
Like early degeneration as far as that goes too,
Yeah, I mean it absolutely has to because any type of pressure, of the cervical spine and that non 45 degree alignment, that's what's causing some of these issues, and it's putting it in a way straighter than 45 degrees.
Yeah, I know. I am definitely guilty of it too.
Yeah, no, I've been catching myself lately, and I have to be way better than this. Especially with the baby and like nursing, like I'll just catch myself like looking down at my phone while I'm doing that. I'm like, I have to get way better at this.
The next thing you know, you're rolling your neck around. You're like, oh man, I could use an adjustment or something right now.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's something that really does need to be addressed.
Now, as far as bad posture too, effects on the digestive system in and of itself, you know. So you're constantly hunched over like this. Well, that's putting more pressure on the intestines, And when you do that, you're decreasing the amount of blood flow in that area too. And the intestines really count on good blood flow for, obviously proper digestion and absorption.
Definitely. Yeah, there were cases at the last office that I was at, and there were like with kids that were having a lot of digestive issues, and just subluxation is when the spine is misaligned and putting pressure on the nervous system. So whenever we would look at a film of this child's lower spine, there were bones shifted out of alignment, and just by getting pressure off off of the nervous system and getting the spine back, it almost completely took care of the digestive issues. And that's why it's, when you see babies, a lot of babies that have constipation or toddlers, that just one adjustment sometimes is all it takes.
And it clears them right out.
Yes.
You just realign everything, the nervous system's working properly, and then, there's nothing inhibiting it. So it can function optimally.
Yeah, definitely. And Dr. Al, I know you want to talk a little bit about, you had a pretty rare case come in, and I know you wanted to discuss it a little bit, and so people are aware of what to kind of look out for that.
You usually don't hear too much about. Every once in a while, you have a pretty rare case come in, but you kind of almost never think it's really going to happen to you. You're like, you hear about it, it's rare, but whatever. But I had a gentleman come in, and it was somebody I've known for a long time, and they were bowling the night before. They woke up and they had literally almost sciatic-like symptoms down one leg. So I figured, okay, so we run through all the gamut of testing and everything, but straight leg was negative, heel toe was negative. He said when he woke up, he had a little bit of weakness, but that has since dissipated. He did mention that his, I believe it started out his right shoulder felt a little weak, but that was also his bowling shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
Where he would bowl with. So I kind of just put that off as, okay, it was probably just tired from bowling, and he said that part of it was okay. I didn't ask the question if he had a recent infection or sickness lately, and I probably should have on the first visit when he came in, and I didn't. But so we treated him, whatnot. He felt better. He was walking around better. I told him to come back the next day, and we'll see how it's going. If I got to send him for imaging or whatnot. And then he came back the next day, and he could barely walk. So I'm like, something's not quite right here. So he came in. I sat him down again, and he started saying his both legs were really weak. And especially from the knees down. And then he goes, it was the craziest thing. He goes, when I woke up this morning, he goes, I couldn't move my arms. And I'm going, oh, okay, something's wrong. So now he could move his arms, no problem. So I said, okay, sit tight for a minute. I went and got Dr. Strange. And again, who's been this is his 35th year in practice. So he's seen just about everything himself, So he comes in and talks to him too. And he looks, he's like, yeah, he goes, I can't pinpoint what it is. He goes, but something's not right. So we made him go right down to his primary to draw blood work. And then from the primary, we wanted him to go to the hospital, or have the primary send him to the hospital. So, didn't really hear much from him after that. He called, I believe it was that Monday, and said that he was in the hospital, and the next day he just went almost completely paralyzed. So he come to find out it was Guillain-Barré syndrome, right? Which didn't present kind of like I thought it would.
Right. Do you want to kind of explain what that is for people listening?
Yeah, so basically it's a viral infection, but it's an ascending disorder. So in other words, it usually starts out with your hands and everything. You get kind of numb and tingly all the way up until it hits kind of the spinal area, and then everything kind of goes paralysis. Usually that's not paralysis is a severe case of it. a lot of times it won't get that bad, but in this case he did. So he generally it's a pretty self-limiting disease. Every once in a while you get a severe one like this, and it just takes quite a while. But I did hear that he's much better. He's up and walking, and he should be
That's
coming
awesome.
home soon.
No, that's awesome.
You know?
And I think like when you see symptoms like that, obviously it's a very scary thing, but what is really great about being a chiropractor is that, we can still treat those things because that is a nervous system, issue.
Like when we worked with him, he felt a lot better.
Right.
And actually got him up and moving because, stimulate the nervous system and everything. But it was just the fact that it was progressing, you know? But, and then come to find out afterwards, he had a respiratory infection about 2 weeks prior, which I think probably kicked it off. But they don't really know the like what the major causes and stuff. If there's genetic factors, they really don't have the research on it to know what fully causes that particular disease.
Right. I know that it's pretty common. Well, not really common, but if it's going to happen, typically, like you said, it's after some type of virus, or I know after vaccinations is something that has been known to trigger that as well.
Yeah, there's I forget which vaccination it was, but yeah, I do remember hearing about that or reading about it, that there was a couple of vaccinations that you have that can cause it.
Right. You kind of reminded me because I did encounter that certain situation with a child that it was pretty recent after a vaccination that caused the virus, and then this was a symptom. Whenever I was at West Virginia University, I specialized in aquatic therapy as well. So a lot of pool rehab. So they had brought this child in to do a lot of rehabilitation in the pool because obviously you're taking pressure off of the muscles and joints, so it was a little bit easier for them, especially with the weakness in the arms and legs. But it definitely can happen because of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of want to modify your diet too.
Yes.
If that does happen, and again, eat, very anti-inflammatory type foods and whatnot.
Right. Definitely.
But yeah, so that was pretty interesting. And if anybody out there is listening with, and as a practitioner with that, just know that sometimes you may not recognize exactly what something is, but you'll know something is wrong.
Right.
And just be heads up with it. Don't keep, adjusting and keep coming back. It'll get better. Keep coming back. No, once you know that something doesn't sound right, send them out.
Yeah. No, definitely. Always, stay on the side of caution, and while at the same time encouraging, like you were saying, start implementing the inflammatory diet, because more than likely there's going to be different tests and then possibly medications that could throw your gut health off, that could make things worse as well. So you have to kind of be aware of that as well.
Sure, it'll lower your immune system and everything else, and then your body can't fight the disease like it should. So you got to make sure that you give your immune system every ounce of energy you can.
Exactly. Yeah, but Dr. Al, were there any other cases that you wanted to discuss?
Yeah, I have a couple other things. I kind of wanted to talk about how much time do we have left?
Oh, we're good. We're good.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. I want to talk about get a little bit more into inflammation and a couple of other things too. I had a lady that I used to train who had MS actually while I was in chiropractic college. She was passed down to me from another student. She was completely wheelchair bound. She had just had an attack about a month or so before I took over. So she was very weak, really couldn't even flex her foot or dorsiflex her foot or lift her foot up. Her upper body was kind of okay. She can move around a little bit. But, when I started working with her, I really got her to start eating pretty healthy, like I said, fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, things like that. And then I had her start taking like bromelain, which you find a lot in pineapples, which is good for you have the proteolytic enzymes, that like turmeric and curcumin. and then I started having her eat kind of more like grass-fed beef, things like that, take flax seeds and whatnot. And then just your basic exercise. I get her in the pool, move her around a little bit. And before we know it, she was kind of back walking in the pool. She could never walk on land, but she had these little floaty weights.
Yes.
And we can get to walk around. And, the first time we did it, I think we only got maybe halfway across. And then, by the time she was pretty well healed, we could go around the pool a few times,
Yeah, no, pool rehab is amazing. That's cool that you've done that too, because I've seen some really awesome stuff by implementing that.
Yeah, no, it's aquatic therapy really is great, and I wish more people would get involved in that too, especially if your joints are bad, you can't run because you have severe osteoarthritis in the knees or ankles and things like that. I mean, aquatic therapy is great.
Yeah, I mean, even athletes that don't have conditions like that, they use it as a to amplify the training that they're already doing. Like you see, like the treadmills in the pool and different weight training in the pool. Like you can really use it for any kind of advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. I've even seen some of the fighters. I know BJ Penn, who is a UFC fighter. He used to do this all the time.
Nice.
They would take a giant rock and they'd sink it to the bottom. They used to do it in Hawaii in this big bay, I guess. And he would go underneath. He'd pick up the rock and walk under the water with the rock.
Wow,
Yep.
That's crazy.
So that was, I thought that was a pretty cool way to train too.
That is.
But you're having the resistance with everything, plus the rock, plus you're forcing your body to utilize oxygen in a pretty good way.
Definitely. And I'm back to the MS, because I'm glad that you did bring that up, because there are a lot of natural alternatives that you can do to help relieve a lot of the symptoms, and it's definitely awful. I personally know a few people that have had to deal with that, and I mean it's definitely not a good thing, but when you implement some of the things like you were saying, it can definitely help a lot.
And I mean, getting adjusted,
Yes.
I mean, we're chiropractors, is what we do.
I mean, that's probably the number one thing out of all of those things that you can
stimulate, because now too, when you're getting adjusted, you're exercising, you're eating right, your body will also create new neural pathways to kind of, now whatever is damaged is damaged. It's a central nervous system disorder, so you're not going to really change that. But sometimes the body can relay different pathways,
Yeah.
So,
and I know there's a lot more studies out that talk about chiropractic care with MS and some successes that they've had with that, with the restoring the cervical curve and decreasing MS symptoms.
Mm-hmm. And lordotic curve in the back as well.
Oh, really? Back. Really? That's cool. That's cool.
Restorative, because you figure once you, like, especially if you're wheelchair bound, it becomes more of a kyphosis.
Right.
So again, you want to do everything you can to try to help the posture of the low back as well.
Right. I'm sure there are some studies out there, Dr. Al, but I'm sure it'd be interesting too to look at the different cases that come up after somebody is wheelchair bound, because you're not in a great position. I mean, unless you have some type of lumbar support in your wheelchair, but you're putting a lot more pressure being in that position. So, you know what I mean? Like the symptoms that can cause just from being in a wheelchair like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Just your normal wear and tear on the back. So you have your mechanical back pain, as well as, again, we throw digestive issues back in there because you're you're hunched over.
Absolutely.
So that, and then that's the importance of getting out and having somebody exercise you as well, and not just kind of. Pam was good because she didn't want to just sit there and feel bad for herself and say, "Oh, this is bad. Why am I wheelchair bound?" No, she's calling me up. Hey, let's do something. Let's go in the pool. Let's work out. She's always upbeat about it, and it was actually her positive attitude, tended to rub off on me a little bit too, because I'm like, wow, you know what? Hey, I want to do a little bit better in school now and start having a little bit better attitude, because I'm like seeing her, in a wheelchair and not able to get around much, but she still just has such a great aura about her,
Yeah. Well, when you see somebody that's in a situation like that or has any kind of, disease, really, like the people that are the most positive are typically the ones that are going to heal faster, and they are going to live longer,
Yeah, absolutely. And then you can even bring stress in on all this too.
Yeah.
Stress is going to
Cortisol
increase
levels and
cortisol levels, and exactly.
yep.
And we say that sometimes too. We're like, well, if we could take away 90% of stress for people, I mean, we wouldn't have a job anymore.
Right. It
Because
really comes down to, I mean, it's not just one thing. Obviously, chiropractic care is, one of the best things you can do for your entire health, getting your nervous system functioning at the best to its ability. But it really is, getting your nervous system working correctly, dealing with the nutrition, and dealing with the mindset. Because if you have a poor mindset, that's going to affect everything else,
yeah, exactly, and in a big way too. You see people when they really want to start exercising, dieting, and doing things, they'll start a little bit, and then once they see a little bit of a result, then boom, that really ignites the fire.
Right. Yeah, I know we were on a past episode. I was with Rebecca Sony. We were talking about just the mindset of once you make that change, about how it can just take off, like you were just saying. But like example of like the 4 minute mile, like it was nobody could do it until one person did, and now everybody does
Now
it.
everybody can do it. That's funny. Somebody in the office was actually just talking about that not too long ago as well. He's like, a lot of these records that you think are never going to be broken, and then all of a sudden one person breaks it, then you're like, oh my God, it can be done.
Right.
And then 2 or 3 more people break the old previous record.
Yeah. And the same thing goes with health. It's like if one person can get over one thing, it changes that mindset. And then all of a sudden you see a lot more people doing it. It really is cool to see how your thoughts can really transform that. Have you ever read the book, Biology of Belief? It's Dr. Bruce Lipton. That's it. Dr. Bruce Lipton.
I haven't yet, but it sounds like I'd be interested in that.
Yeah, you should check it out because it's really cool, because it shows how like your thought processes, and it affects your body on like even on like a cellular level. So it really gets into it like scientifically, and how it actually affects it with the research there as well. It's super interesting. I definitely would recommend it. I think it's like 3 hours on an audiobook, so it's definitely not bad.
What was the name of it again?
It's Biology of Belief, and it's Dr. Bruce Lipton. It's really great.
Huh. Okay, I just write that down. I'm gonna check that.
You would love it. You would love it.
That's pretty good. I'm just trying to think of what else. I had something else I wanted to add to the posture key. Oh, kind of a couple of things you can do for posture. If I could just go back to that for a second.
Go for it.
Do you guys ever hear of wall angels? Doing wall angels?
Wall angels. Your back is flat against a wall and just upward, downward motion with your arms, right?
With your arms.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And so that one, and then just you put your hands. The other one, you put your hands behind your back and you roll your shoulders back and forth. And then you're working with bands, basically just doing extension exercises of the arms to strengthen like your the rotator cuff muscles, so like infraspinatus, teres minor, plus the rhomboids.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually had 2 recent kyphosis cases that come in. One lady, she came to me, very bad kyphosis. I should have taken measurements on it. I didn't, because I didn't realize I was going to have a response like this either. But I palpated, and I think it was like right around T6, T7 was super tender, like really light her up bad. So I sent her for an x-ray, and it came back she had a compression fracture.
Wow. And just a heads up for people that don't know, kyphosis is kind of like when you see somebody with a little bit like hunchback, like that mid back is a little bit more upwards.
Yeah, and I know I forget to explain that stuff sometimes. But yeah, so basically what I did, obviously compression fracture is not a ton that they're going to do for it. So I took a low back brace and raised it up a little bit, and had her wear that for a few weeks. And even she said it felt better all the time when she was wearing it. So she asked about sleeping with it. So I said, you know what? I said, go ahead, try sleeping with it. Got her through the night. I said, every once in a while you have to take it off just to kind of reset the muscles and everything and whatnot.
Yeah, because you don't want to develop any like compensations for that.
Right. So I did explain that to her, and she followed directions. Now, once that healed, I had her start doing more postural exercises, the wall angels, hands behind the back and squeezing the shoulder blades and whatnot together. And then, just all of a sudden she comes in one day and I'm like, Denise, where did your hunchback go? And she's like, oh yeah, she goes, I don't know. She goes, it's been much better. So she, it was somebody who actually followed directions, did what we said every day. And, the results speak for themselves. I mean, it's unbelievable. And she has very minimal pain there now.
That's awesome. And I know something it's helped for us as well is like there's different cervical lumbar rolls that you can lay on just for, I mean, not a super long time. You definitely want to build yourself up, but whenever you combine it with the adjustments and the exercises like you're talking about, it can really speed the process along. I don't know if you've had any experience working with any type of like molding rolls where you just lay flat. And
then the kind of the ones you roll back and forth on, or just
nope. Actually, these are you're just stationary. And just like a daily practice of work your way up. Start at like 15 minutes and just lay. Like there's a bigger roll underneath your neck, a smaller one in your low back, and
in your low back.
Yeah, and you can actually, if you don't have access to the rolls, like you can roll up a bigger towel and put it behind your neck, and like a smaller towel and put it in your low back, and it really makes a huge difference in just helping put the spine back in a normal like alignment.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I haven't had them do that just kind of on their own. When they're driving, if they're having like sciatic like symptoms, things like that, I tell them to take a pillow or roll up a towel or something and put it, to accentuate the curve in the back, which usually takes some pressure off of it.
Yeah, no, that makes a huge difference. Dr. Al, I think something that you should do, I'm going to, put your like Instagram account on the show notes. Okay. If you can make videos with showing the different exercises, I think that would be really helpful for people that are trying to improve their posture, or maybe they sit all day, or I think that would be really good. That way it's, it's kind of hard to think about it and not see it visually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's I know when you're talking about it, it's kind of tough. I'll do that. I'll start making some videos.
Yeah, if you can do some posture ones and then also some stretches, I think that would be really helpful for people on Instagram or maybe Facebook. So I'm not sure if you have Facebook, but I'll get all those from you.
Yeah, I'll do that. I do have to make a professional page for Facebook.
Gotcha.
But I'll have to do that soon.
Yeah,
get that done
and I think
get
that
up
really
because
helpful for people.
Yeah, like I said, with social media and everything nowadays, doing the podcasts, you have Instagram, Facebook, all these other things. It's just such a great way to get through to people and show them that hey, you got to take care of yourself. 2, it's pretty easy because you're giving them step-by-step instructions on how to do it. Whereas years ago, what did you do? You're not going to look through Encyclopedia Britannica for it,
Right. No, definitely. Yeah, it makes it easier. Like you're saying, I mean, when you can see a 1-minute video of something, it's like, oh, you get it,
Mm-hmm.
And,
absolutely.
And there's so many things you can do. I mean, even like, I know you wanted to kind of talk on it, but even if you're not an athlete, like even if you just, you have a desk job or you're in a job where you're commuting all day, like there's things you can do to keep your spine strong. That way, when you're not at your job, well, obviously, you want to perform the best you can at your job, but that way you're not spending the weekend like having to lay out on the couch because you have so much pain, And,
with heating pads and everything else.
Right. I mean, it really affects your quality of life. I mean, you're seeing it right now with Coach Steve Kerr with Golden State. Like he had so much back issues, he had to have back surgery, and now he can't even coach during the playoffs because he's in way too much pain. And it really affects everything, not just at a professional level, but I mean at any type of level.
Yeah, I mean for anybody, like you said, you talk about having a desk job and things like that. One thing I noticed that employers are starting to do, which is great, is having stand-up desks. I've had several people come in and they're like, yeah, they've been talking about it, this and that. I said, make them get you one.
Yeah.
And they do, and they make a difference in there. But they're like, well, then I'm standing the whole time. I said, no. I said, you gotta switch it up. You said you sit for a few. Once you start to feel the slightest inkling, get up, stretch out, then stand for a little bit. Once you start to feel a little pressure, stretch out, then sit back down. I said you have to keep altering it. You can't just do one or the other. Well, I have a standing desk, it's great. No, you have to kind of go back and forth, and listen to your body with it.
Right. And I mean, if I actually, and I might be wrong with this, but I think some insurance companies will cover the purchase of, or, you know what I mean? It will cover the purchase of of a standing desk or certain company insurances. You might want to check with your work to see if that's possible, because I think they work pretty closely with companies that do that. And I could be totally wrong, but for some reason I'm thinking that.
I could check it. I could check into that.
And if anything, just having some type of wobble disc in your chair at your work, so you're moving, or a wobble, or one of the balls, the stability balls.
Yeah, the stability balls. Yep. Yeah. And again, coming back to balance exercises. Mm-hmm. Another thing too, you can do, you stand on one foot with your the foot that's up in the air, keep it about 1 inch away from the opposite knee, and you try to get 30 seconds. Once you get 30 seconds, you go for a minute. Once you get a minute, then you go for 2 minutes. But what that's doing is strengthening the little intrinsic muscles of the feet, ankles, all the way up through.
Yeah, and that's really harder than you think it is.
Yeah, absolutely. You think, I could stand on 1 foot all day long.
Yep.
Yeah, but the majority of people that I test this with, they can't. As soon as they bring the foot up, they're wobbling and falling over. The proprioception is off. The little intricate muscles of the feet are off. And if you think about it, when you're walking, you're only on 1 foot at a time, or running.
Or especially running. Especially running, you're none. It's during the stride.
Yeah, and then you're coming down and hammering down with the foot.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes a huge difference, and that's going to affect. I know we talked a lot about arches and knees, but it's also all the way up to the hip, and then everything's interconnected. So it really does affect every action of your body.
Mm-hmm. Even all the way up through the neck. You figure if the pelvis is out and the body's leaning one way, it's going to try to compensate by leaning the top the other way. So you have a high left shoulder, high right shoulder, mm-hmm. And then your neck, you have a little scoliotic curve in your neck because your neck's trying to get back to midline.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's all of that is really great. And I think that would be awesome, Dr. Al, if you start putting out some videos like that will really assist people. Because I think being able to see it and seeing how easy it is will really help a lot. Maybe even some exercises for younger kids to do to help kind of combat the text neck thing that we talked about. So yeah. I think that would be really great.
Absolutely. And like I said, it's something you gotta be proactive and get involved.
Yep. Awesome. Well, I think it's a good place to wrap it up. And I really appreciate you coming on. I think you gave people a lot to work on, and that they can improve, to not just for physical performance, but for their work, and so they're not injured and they can spend more time with their families. I think that's really great.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything for everyday life, just an overall general wellness,
Awesome. Well, Dr. Al, what is the best way for people to follow you, social media?
Yeah, you could follow me on Facebook is just Al Colucci. On Instagram, I'm Colucci228. And I have a Twitter account, but I don't actually use it. And but anybody's more than welcome to shoot me an email as well.
And what is your email?
That's acolucci10@aol.com. Okay,
awesome. Yeah, I'll put all of those links in the show notes. That way you guys can go follow Dr. Al, see what he's up to. And I know he's going to be putting out those videos, so check out the videos that he puts out. That way you can learn steps that you can take when you're home or at the office to help strengthen your spine. And they're just simple little exercises that will make a huge difference on your entire health. So, but thank you so much.
Thank you, Casey. I appreciate it. And like I said, it's just a good tool to get out there and teach people, using the podcasting for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So. Thank you so much, Dr. Al.
All righty. Yeah, great talking to you. So hopefully we do it again sometime.
Absolutely.